Yes. Okay, it's good.
Starting?
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's me. I know you missed me this weekend. Hey, so I just want to make sure I went over a couple of things for your take-home test so that I can at least work on trying to make sure you guys are understanding. So when it comes to the basic Punnett square, big P, big R, little r, that kind of stuff, we have notes on that. There's already a tutorial. As far as the incomplete dominance, so some of you guys missed that because you were absent. Incomplete dominance is when you have a blending of traits. So if I have a heterozygous individual that has two different alleles, instead of one winning over the other one, they do a compromise with a blend. So that's what we're looking at when we see incomplete dominance. So I know one of your questions does ask you about an incomplete dominant situation. So if we were to look at that, I might say something like, hey, a capital R is going to represent a red petal flower plant, right? And then I do this weird thing here where an R with a little apostrophe or a 1 or just some kind of notation is going to represent a different color. So in this case, that's going to equal a white vote or a white allele for flower color, right? So then maybe in the problem, I'm going to say, hey, we're going to cross a white flower plant with a red flower plant or whatever the case may be. So if I have these allele options, the only way for me to have a red flower plant is to have both letters be this capital R, because both of these are going to vote for red, right? So an incomplete dominance or codominance or anything like that, this particular trait, you're going to have to be homozygous for that, right? So the two letters for this flower would just be regular R's, right? That's the only way you can be red. Now, what about if we had a white flower plant? So if your question says, hey, we're going to cross something where one of them is a white flower plant. Okay, well, remember, when these two blend, we're getting pink. So in order to be white, both of my alleles have to vote for white. So in that case, it would be this. Right? So that's the only way you're going to get red right here. The only way you're going to get a white flower is to have a homozygous. So then you might be asking, okay, well, what does it look like when I have one of each? If we have a heterozygous individual with a plain R and an R with that little mark on it, this is a heterozygous individual because those are different votes. That's when we get a pink flower. All right? So that's what makes it different from that whole dominant recessive thing. In this case, we don't have a winner. Incomplete dominance is when we blend. Red, white makes pink. Okay? Now, I'm not going to do a Punnett square because that's part of your test. But if you pay attention to this, make sure you use these genotypes appropriately. Make sure you interpret them appropriately. You should be able to answer your questions. Make a Punnett square, and that should at least help you a lot. So let's move on, and let's look at what happens if we have something called co-dominance. So I explained it in class that if you are a co-captain, or if you're a co-leader of a committee or something like that, you both are leaders in your own way. So you do your ideas over here, or we do our ideas over here. And so we both are going to express and do some of the things we want to do. So in co-dominance, we still might use kind of a similar situation. So maybe I tell you that, hey, this capital R is going to represent, I think we talked about cow hair. So there's a hair, it's like a brownish red, but we just call it red. So we're going to say that this capital R represents red cow hair, okay? So it's a vote for that trait, right? But the white hair color allele, we don't blend and make a pink cow, right? So the white allele is going to have its own letter. Because what happens in that cow, some of the hairs are going to be red, some are going to be white. It could be splotchy, it could be patchy. You could have a big old patch of red all in the face and the shoulders and stuff, but then you get to the back and it's more like white or speckled or something like that. But you're literally having white cow hairs or red cow hairs. So with codominance, you're going to see them equally, distinctly. you're gonna see red is red, you're gonna see white is white. And then if we have a combo where the individual has red and white alleles, you're going to see both of those colors, right? So let's say the W is gonna represent the white here. So similar to the incomplete dominance, if I have a red cow, so if you see that on your test, it's very similar to the incomplete dominance. The only way to actually have red hair all over the cow is to have two of these in your genotype. So we'd have to have two capital R's. That's the only way to be all red. So if you ever see red cow crossed with anything, or if you see this in your square, then you know that it does have red hair, okay? Likewise, what if we have a white cow? Okay, well the only way to have fully white is to have the two W votes, right? Mom and dad both gave you that white vote. So your DNA will only make the white hair. So again, what happens now if we have a heterozygous individual? So what happens if you ever see this? Well, there's a name for that red and white splotch or patches or however you want to call it, and it's called roan, R-O-A-N. It is just a hair pattern where you have the red and the white. So this right here, your heterozygous, is going to be known as the roan, and that's the splotchy. And there are pictures, if you look up roan cow hair, you will see what I'm talking about. There's that variety of splotches or patches of red and white. So again, this is the codominance because they each are going to be seen distinctly. All right. So let's look and see what other kind of things we have. Now, blood typing. Blood typing, okay? We have a little bit of codominance because an A blood type allele and a B blood type allele are both codominant. So they will both be seen in your red blood cells. But then we also have another allele. And it's going to represent the O blood type, right? So let me show you what those alleles would look like. They use the letter I, and it comes from your immune system. It stands for, if I remember correctly, the word immunoglobulin. I believe that's another word. In fact, it is for an antibody. Those are what's helping your body fight diseases. So this has to do with, if I get the wrong blood type, my immune system will fight. And it will cause a big mess, and it could kill somebody if you do that. So it's a big deal, right? Our immune system is very serious when it comes to protecting us. So that is where the I comes from, is the word immunoglobulin. So an I, which means we're talking about a blood type allele, but if I put a little A next to it, that is a notation of, hey, I'm voting to have this blood type A, right? I'm gonna have these certain proteins on my cell, and that makes me blood type A. So this is going to be a vote or DNA that would give you blood type A, and I'm abbreviating just for time, right? But then I have another allele that would create a different protein on your blood cells, and they call that B. I don't know why, you can look it up. But this would vote, or be DNA, to give you blood type B. So just like we just did with codominance, these two alleles are codominant. If you end up with both of those from mom and dad, you would have blood type AB. That's what we call it. Very rare blood type, but that is out there, right? So these are codominant to each other. Okay, abbreviation there. But like I said, there's a third allele in this mix, which is a lowercase I. That is the one that's going to vote for what we call blood type O. Okay, this one doesn't make any proteins on your red blood cells in that regard. But it's a lowercase because it is recessive to either one of these, right? So if I get this combination of the IB with the little I, I'd be blood type B because it would take over. Likewise, if I get the A combined with the O allele, I would be blood type A, right? The only way to actually be blood type O is to have two little I's there, right? So what I noticed people are getting a little confused on, what if I had a mom who had these alleles, right? These are two separate alleles. The I goes with the A, that's one allele. This I with the A, that's one allele. So when we put that in a square, I need to separate those and make sure they have their own space outside the square. So this I can put here, and I need to put the little A notation with it because it all goes together. So then this one would need to be separate as well, right? So then what happens if in here, I have a heterozygous for blood type B, right? So now when I bring those together in the center of the Punnett square, I need you to look at what this should look like. This is an allele that needs to be written, but that's just one allele. This one also needs to come down. I need both of those capital I's with their separate notation. Okay, it's a lot of letters, but the I and the B go together, the I and the A go together as one allele. So you should have a complete genotype here. And I can do one more just to show. So this IA would come across, and this little I would come down, and so I would have a heterozygous. I've got the A here, the little I there, and that's a heterozygous genotype. And then you could fill out the rest. And then you would need to answer your question as to what is the chance of this blood type or that blood type or whatever. But this is where I saw a lot of confusion, is how to put those alleles outside the square. And then when I bring them together, I need to make sure that I'm getting every piece of information. So that is it with the blood types. I think I'm gonna do another video here in a second about section 4, because that's when you're doing DNA replication, and then you're also doing some transcription translation. So this is gonna cover some of those special kinds of inheritance. So thanks for your patience, and hopefully you guys, that helps you understand. But make sure you email me if you have questions, and the test is due on Tuesday. So make sure you guys get that filled out so you get all the points possible. All right, we're gonna stop the video. See ya.
Or that last part.